Welcome back, everybody. Boring People episode once again. I have a really cool guest here today that I haven't seen on the show yet. I have Jamie V. I don't know how to say your last name. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, you're good, man.
But I work for you. I talked about my internship on here once before because we did do filming here.
Yeah.
But this is the guy. This is one of the founders, CEO, if I'm correct. And overall, you're a really cool guy. So, just kind of tell me about how you started Grit Media. What is Grit Media?
So Grit Media, it's evolved over the years, but right now we help personal brand. We help CEOs, founders create their personal brand online and help them build their business, really just build their overall presence. Obviously, we know personal branding is like the thing. It's the buzzword amongst all major businesses. It's like everybody's talking about how do we increase our brand? And for us, we just saw the market trend of where the world's going, and personal branding is obviously where it's at in marketing. But started about 2.5 years ago. Really just started as I was creating a bunch of content on social media, and somebody came up to me and was like, "Hey, will you run my brand? And will you run?" I think it was a real estate guy who wanted me to do his content for like $600. And I was like, "Oh shit, like that's crazy." And I went to Jace and told him about it, and Jace was like, "I like that idea. I think we could go bigger." And he just kind of pitched me on this idea of like, dude, we should start a marketing agency that does all these different things and all these different functions. And that was around December of 2021. And then from there, we've just been chipping away ever since, man.
What is your favorite part about working at Grit Media and doing what you do on the day-to-day?
I think it really comes down to, I'm a creative person. So I always knew that I needed to do something creative with my day-to-day. But honestly, the more that I get into being a builder and a business owner, that is really fun for me. So it's the mix of like, I took the thing that I loved, which was creating and producing content and doing things like that, and then I merged it with how can I make a business around it and how can I provide value. But honestly, for me, where I get the most energy is from our clients. Like, our clients are awesome. And like, that's what I would say the integrity of our company is. Our backbone is the people we work with, because without them, we would have nothing. So being able to work with people that are, again, a lot of them have either sold their company, are in the process of selling their company, or in some cases their company is about to explode and we're helping them do it. It's like so cool being 24 and getting to surround yourself with people that are 12, 20, 50 steps ahead of you, and then getting to work with them so closely in an area where you're an expert and they aren't necessarily. So it's like this cool thing where when we started it, I knew I wanted to provide value. But, when you're talking about major CEOs, you can't give them money. They don't give a shit. You know what I mean? Like, what's it? For some of these guys, what's an extra $1 million a month that they make? It doesn't do anything to them. Granted that some of them and other of them, they'd say, yeah, give me $1 million a month. But we do something that many people cannot, and we do it in a way that, how we started, we built it in a way that like, hey, let's make this unscalable. As a way to provide as much value as possible, and then figure out the scaling part later on. And that's been really fun.
So working with like super high level CEOs, CFOs, people of that nature, have you found that your business grows faster than, let's say, another business that wouldn't be, let's say, working as closely with these CEOs?
Believe it or not, it actually grows slower. And I'll tell you why. Because I had a meeting with Joel Kaplan about 2 years ago. Me and Jace got on a call with him, and we pitched him this crazy idea. We were in an agency mastermind where there's a lot of people that if they were doing content, they were doing it niche specific. So they'd do it just for doctors, or just for these guys, or just for those guys. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but locationally, we have a competitive advantage in the fact that we're in the richest city per capita. There's more millionaires per capita in Naples, Florida than anywhere else in the United States. So we sat with Joel and we explained where we were locationally, and we pitched him this idea of like, look, we know that we can scale and we can do paid ads and we can do these mass marketing tactics to grow our company very quickly. You know, there's some people in the group that within 3 to 4 months, they were $40,000 a month companies, like immediately, almost out of the box. And I remember he sat there and he goes, all right, I'll tell you this. If you guys are looking to grow fast, that's not the way to do it, because you're talking about a clientele that, number one, the sales process is way longer. They have to trust you and they have to want it. So there's more factors than, oh, we work with doctors who are looking to get 5 more patients this month or whatever, you know, offer most agencies offer. And so for us, just being able to be different, Joel was like, look, it's going to take a while, but in 5 years, you are going to be set for, you know, life, or just set in a lot of ways that these other agencies aren't, because you're building with more, we're building with a deeper foundation than most people, because our clients are, you know, a lot of these clients, they won't churn for years. You know what I mean? Yeah. Once you get started with them, they're with you. So it takes a longer time to grow, but it's also a more meaningful growth. Okay.
And does that translate, does growth of the company translate to growth in yourself?
It's actually the other way around. I've found, and again, I'm inexperienced versus, you know, the people we work with, and I'm just kind of figuring it out as I go. But what I found is I am the biggest bottleneck to my business. And most entrepreneurs that are, before you hit that $1 to $3 million a year mark, they're their biggest bottleneck in a lot of cases. You're your biggest driver for your company, and you're also your biggest bottleneck. So I have, you know, I can work, I can put my head down, I have a lot of skills, but what you'll recognize when you're building a company, your personal pitfalls end up being the company's pitfalls. So for instance, if you're bad with money, your company's going to be bad with money. If you're bad with the relationships, your company's going to be bad with the relationships, especially in the early days. So for me, I have started looking at business as the inputs that I put in and the consistency of those inputs really determine for me the success. And now people are like, well, how does that correlate to your own personal development? Most people can't be consistent in anything. Mm-hmm. So if you can't be consistent in something as simple as like showing up for your business, how are you going to be consistent in your personal life? Or vice versa. If you can't show up for yourself, a lot of people are like, oh, I don't have time to work out. Okay, so you're saying as an entrepreneur, you're not even going to show up for yourself, but you're going to show up for everybody else. Well, guess what? You're going to show up as a lesser version of yourself to everybody else if you're not filling your own cup in a lot of ways.
I heard a really good expression, and I forget who it's from, and I don't want to steal it, so it's definitely not mine. But I heard it, and it really made me go, wow. It's not that you don't have time to do things. It's that you're choosing not to do it, because you have the time to do it, but you're just choosing not to. Everybody has the time. It's whether you make the time for it or not. Like, for example, we were here, what was it, maybe Thursday? We had a client in from literally 9 o'clock. I was here till 7. I was here for a 10-hour workday, right?
Yeah.
I went home, ate food, went to the gym. Not only did I go to the gym, I trained MMA on the bag for 15 minutes. Then I ran a mile. So it's not that you don't have the time. It's that you're choosing not to do it, at least from my view. And I'm still 17 years old. I don't have an insane perspective on the world. But pushing yourself is something that a lot of people have a really tough time with. Yeah. I know someone like us with our personality, it's not hard to push ourselves. You've been doing something that a lot of people would say is really resilient and not a lot of people do. It's your ultras. You've been doing really insane distance running and biking and swimming. Yeah. So what's the race you just did? And tell me how you push yourself through those trials.
So Quest for the Crest I did in May of this year. Quest for the Crest is comes out to be a 37-mile trail race with about 11,900 feet of gain. So that race I had been prepping for 2 years. I actually went the year before, did the race, failed at mile 19. And I got done that race this time, or May of last year, and dude, I was crushed. I pride myself in my athletics. Like, I've always been in football or some form of athletics, and I have a lot of my personal identity tied up into what I can do physically. And so going to a race where I didn't train properly for it, but I still had this unreasonable confidence of like, oh, well, I'm still going to be able to do it. I'm still going to be able to push myself, and I'm still going to be able to finish. And not being able to do that, you know, I slipped into a period in my life where I didn't trust myself in a lot of cases because I had something on the calendar, I didn't prepare properly, and then I failed. And the year after that was a year of like finding myself, because there was a point last year before the race where I just gave up on myself personally. I was so focused on the business. I was so focused on everything else that was happening in my life that I was like, yeah, I'll show up on race day and I'll still get it done, but I'm not going to prepare properly. And, you know, that bit me. And that also bit me in business that year, where, you know, when you're working with people, your preparation is your, you know, I heard a quote when they talked about business where, like, when we're in sports, 95% of our time is spent on practice, and then 5% is spent in the game. In business, the paradigm is the other way. Most people spend 95% of their time in the game of business and 5% preparing. So, as I said earlier, this was a great eye-opener to me to see where my gaps were personally. I didn't prepare properly, spent the last year really building the right way, and I was able to get that race done this year in right under, I think it was 14 hours and 57 minutes. The funny thing about that is every time I've done an ultra marathon, I've come back and my business has grown. Every time, like literally every time. And I can only attribute it to the fact that you go into something and you actually don't understand if you're going to be able to complete it, but you just take one little step each time. When you get to that wall where you're like, I can't go any further, there's no like breaking it. You just have to take one step at a time. And honestly, that's pretty spot on to what business is. It's like every day. I mean, talking about this week for us, like this is Kyle's first week, and I'm pretty sure we did something like 50-ish hours in the first week at 17 years old. You know what I mean? Like, that's a crazy output, But for us at our company, that's just what it is.
It is.
That's just what and we don't look at that as like, oh, wow, we're producing, you know, more or less than we're supposed to. We're just like, this is the work that is required, and this is what we're going to do. So to kind of wrap that in a bow, what all these races have taught me is the power of what we actually can do versus what we think we can do. I mean, in that race, 19 miles in, where I failed last year, I wanted to give up. I remember getting to the bottom to where that aid station was at mile 19, and right before I got there, I was like, it's okay if you just throw in the towel. Like you finish, you've done something that very many people can't do, but it's that idea of, okay, not many people can do this, but I'm going to go a little bit further. So that was kind of the mantra for me, and that's been the mantra for me since the race, and it's translated into my business life more than I ever expected, and it's why I've continued to do it.
Mm-hmm. So moving forward, where's your head at as far as what you want to achieve? Mm-hmm. And what that kind of looks like, and where does that parallel with like your business life?
It's weird, man. I've reduced a lot of my personal expectations. I think one of the saddest things for most entrepreneurs is they are always chasing what they believe their expectation of themselves is, and a lot of times it's skewed. We have this expectation that we're supposed to be perfect, and we're supposed to, you know, be millionaires by the time we're 30, and all these crazy ideas that social media is kind of put in our brains. So for me, my life is focused on how can I maximize the value that I give to my clients? How can I get more clients because of the value that I provide? And then how can I just keep showing up and loving what I'm doing every day? Because business is really a war of attrition. It's how long can you go until you finally reach that breakthrough. Every entrepreneur talks about the moment where they've been working for years and years and years, and finally it breaks and finally it opens up. And so for me, I don't have an expectation. I want to grow, obviously, like everybody, but I don't have like this, oh, I need to be X, Y, and Z at this time in my life, because at the end of the day, I can only control what I can control, which is my inputs. So as long as I'm putting in the inputs, that's all I can really control. So that gives me a lot of clarity, and especially for the people that listen to your podcast, I'm assuming a lot of them are younger. It's like, give yourself the grace to just be in it. Like that's what people run from. They want to be like, okay, so if we hit this next 6 weeks super hard, we're going to be able to be here. It's like, not really. It's like you put in 6 weeks, you get to the end of that 6 weeks, nothing really shows for it, but you got just maybe a tiny bit better in a couple of different areas. And then you stack that over not just a couple of months, but you stack that over 5 years, 10 years. Now all of a sudden, because you're withstanding all the ups and downs that go with business that you have no control over, you're actually just, your skill and your value to the marketplace goes up with the amount of years that you provide what you provide.
So I kind of want to switch it up a little bit, but we're going to kind of stay on topic here. There's a lot of people in my generation.
Yep.
You kind of know how I work. We're kind of just, we work when we do what has to be done, as you said. One of the things that my generation does, especially with social media, is we like to say that we work really, really hard, and that we want these lifestyles, we want the Lambos, we want the rented penthouses, we want the watches, this and that. And that kind of leads to the full social media facade kind of guru section, right? And that's kind of between our age group, right? And right in our demographic, that those people are doing that. What do you think of the people who are my age trying to act like gurus, who don't have it made out yet, but they want to be in business, but they don't really, but they want the money, and like, what do you kind of like, what's your perspective as like a little bit older?
It's funny, man. What I did building, what I've always done is I've looked at myself as an incomplete part of the puzzle. Like, I have a lot that I bring to the table, but what most people our age, younger, they think that they're like this, like, I can do it myself. I got it all. It's such bullshit. Like, if you want to build something really special, it's who you work with. It's so much of who you work with that, like, your true value to what you do is, it's just a sliding scale. Like, some days you're the main driver, and then other days everybody's picking up the slack for you. So it's like, I think there's a very toxic mentality of like, I have to be an entrepreneur at this age. I work with people that started their entrepreneurial career at 40 years old, and then they ended up being massively successful by the time that they were 45. Did they do nothing up until they were 40? No, of course not. They worked with the people that taught them what they needed to know, so that when they started their business, they could build something of real value in half the time. So what I would say, most people want this, like, oh, I don't want to work for anybody. I want to just, I want to start my own thing. You don't even know what your value is yet. Work with people to start discovering it. I didn't know who I was even as an entrepreneur until this year. And I've been doing it for 4 years. 4 years of my life working towards something, and I didn't even know what I was good at. 2 years in our business until we understood what we were good at. So my point in saying that is, look around. Just find people that are a couple of steps ahead of you. And that's what I give you a lot of credit for. It's people in your age group, they have this like unrealistic expectation of what entrepreneurship is. They believe that they can get where they want to go faster and with less effort. And the thing that I always look at is, whatever the easy way is, if you just consistently choose the opposite direction and you always lean towards the hard shit, that's where the winning is really done.
So there's a semi-expression that kind of goes like, what goes up quickly ends up coming down just as quickly.
Yeah.
And I find that to be a very eye-opening way for my mental process, because I think that if I go up quickly, right? Like I know that if I run up just straight up, I'm going to come down straight down.
Yep.
So my mentality's always been, I know that my life is going to be a war from here on out.
Yep.
I know my life has been the easiest it'll ever be. like this is how I think. My life, high school just ended. That's the easiest my life will ever be, is from then to before. I got every need taken care of,
Yep.
everything. So now from now on, I am in the story building, character building part of my life. And that means I'm going to have to put in hours that maybe I do want to put in, but are going to be tough to put in.
Yeah.
When I run personally, there's days where I want to wake up and run, and there's
Yeah.
days when I don't want to wake up and run. And even on the days that I don't want to run, when I'm done with it, I'm happy I did it. And then if I didn't run, I regret it that I didn't run. So I think of that kind of in my way of life. Right now, I know I'm in a part where I need to build myself up as a person. And like you said, you find people a few steps ahead of you. You guys are just a few steps ahead of where I'm at. You guys are just, what, like 5 years older than me, give or take?
Yeah,
5,
just about.
6, whatever. And you guys are just at that point where you started your company. You're kind of getting off, you're moving forward. And I'm at the part where I need to build my skills, find what I'm good at, start the company, and kind of move along with that. From my position, what do you think would be the best steps moving into college?
Yeah.
And this kind of goes as general high school advice. Going into college, I want to be successful. I still want to have the fun in my life. Where do I find that balance? And how should I properly move through properly? I'm going to use quotes on that.
Put yourself around the people. Like, this is what you've done that I give you a lot of credit for. You don't have to start your business. You don't need to build something right now. You need to be around people that build so that you have the context of how to build for the future. So where most high schoolers, and I was this, like my first company was home service. Like I was cleaning people's houses. I was doing the math with Jace the other day. I think I've cleaned 90 toilets in my life. Or not even in my life, just in the time that I built the cleaning company, or I was a part of the cleaning company. I cleaned like 90 toilets, and I was supposed to be the marketing guy. So like that for me, if I could go back, the biggest moves that I made in my career were when I wasn't the head honcho. Like you want the feeling of being like the guy. You know, at our age, if you're the guy, your company isn't going anywhere. Like it's going to take much. I don't want to say it's not going anywhere. It's going to take much longer to get where you want to go versus what we've done. Again, I'm not a sole owner. I don't own 100% of what I own. I have Jace, who was the catalyst for entrepreneurship for me. He was the guy that goes, "Hey, you need to start the company." Then I have Ryan, who's 2 years younger than me, who just based on being at the right place at the right time, set himself up for the next 15 years of his life because he was at the right place at the right time. He was running a pressure washing company. He was literally running a pressure washing company. I give him a call in July of last year, and I go, "Look, we just brought on these new clients. I know I'm at my max personally. I need somebody that I can go into battle with." Ryan had a company where he was the guy, but he walked away from that to join a bigger mission, a bigger group, something where he could be the sponge, where he could take in all the information. So as long as you're in that position and you lead with humility versus I know it all, I want to know it all, it's just like at no point, even the most successful guys I've met, none of them did it alone. So it's just for somebody like you or somebody, people in that age bracket that are going to college, couple things. Invest into your people there in college. Meet people, like build relationships. All my business partners either came through the relationships I made in college or were literally my relationships from college. Like Jace was my basically like my right-hand man throughout my entire college career. And Ryan was like what I looked at as like my protege. And then they turned out to be my business partner. So it's like when you build in with that in mind and you take the ego out of it and you don't care about having 100% of a small thing, that's really where I see the success.
Do you think that, like, at least in my age group, a lot of people have kind of like an ego issue? Like, I know that I personally have a really big ego.
Yeah.
I'm very confident. I have that Derek Fay mentality of
Absolutely.
like, I can do anything, and if you tell me to stop and then I can't, F you, I'm going to do it 100 times harder.
Yeah.
Did you have that when you were kind of going into high school, when you were playing sports in high school? Did you really have the mindset of that you can kind of do anything you want and that anything is possible? And do you think that that is actually a healthy and good mindset for kids my age or even people your age when running a business?
Here's how I look at it. I didn't have what you have. I didn't have the context yet of what was even possible. I wish I would have met a Derek Fay at your age, truthfully. Because Derek, for me, in my life, was the guy that, not just Derek, but Derek, Jace, Ben, these people in my life, when I met them, they showed me what was actually possible. At a large point, like for most of my life, I didn't really believe all that much in myself. Like I didn't see what I could produce because I just hadn't built the evidence, especially in business at that time. I hadn't built the evidence that I could be anything but what I was. So being able to expose yourself to people that in a lot of cases are just humans. Like they put on their shorts the same way you do. They put on their shirt the same way you do. They eat the same food that you do. They do similar things that you do. But somehow they happen to have a business that's worth millions and millions of dollars. You start to believe in what's possible. And so for you put yourself around a guy like Derek, who then introed you to us, who then gave you the insight to this is what a company looks like. Here's a company that's been around for a couple of years. Again, are we anything massive? Not yet, but the reality is you have the context to, wait a minute, I can do this. And I think that's where it starts, but then having the humility to understand I can do this, but I also can't do it without others.
Mm-hmm. When you are building relationships with, I'm going to say specifically clients in this stake, people of high profile, high wealth, at first, when you went to approach like a Derek, knowing what he's done, did you have any fear? Because I knew when I first met Derek, he was something bigger than when you met him. You met him when he was basically, I'm going to say, a nobody on social media.
Yeah.
He just exited a huge company.
Yeah.
And I met him. I knew about his exit. I knew what he was worth. I knew what he did. He had 1 million followers on Instagram. I knew when I met him, I was shaking a little bit because this is a guy who I've been watching on social media. I look up to personally. Yeah. He's kind of what I want to be in the future. Were you scared to approach someone like that? And if you were scared, how do you get past that?
I was terrified. There was a moment when the story of that is, it's funny because it took me 3 months just to get his attention, like fully get his attention. I DM'd him. I would follow up with him constantly. I was in a mode in my life where I just wasn't taking no for an answer. So it didn't matter if he said not today or whatever. I just didn't really care. I was going to either he was going to tell me to f off or we were going to work together. And there was no in between. It was like he has to literally tell me stop hitting me up for me to stop, realistically. So when I looked at that, not only was I terrified, when we finally went to his house to close the deal, I have a 2010 Honda CRV. And the night before I'm going to close the deal, I call my buddy Ben, who owns a rental, owns a rental car company. And I was like, look, I need your best car. And I got a Audi SQ5 or an SQ5. Yeah. An Audi SQ5, rented it for the day just to pull up to his house because I didn't want to approach a guy who was about to pay me more than my car that I was going to drive up in. Like, that's the type of, and now looking at it, that was a very like, I don't regret it at all, but it was a very childish way of thinking. It was like, oh, like, you think that's going to make a difference? No. Like, you're going to have to show up to his house that next week in your CRV regardless. But what I'm saying is, yeah, I was fucking terrified, of course. And no matter if he had a huge social media presence or not, he had all the proof in the world of he is that guy. He just hadn't gotten there yet. So for me, I was like, yeah, I was scared, but the reality is, it's like, that's the point that we were talking about earlier. Okay, you're gonna let that fear stop you, or you're gonna let that fear, in a lot of cases, fear is one of the best feelings that you can get, because it actually drives action if you're the right type of person.
I relate to your story of meeting Derek in many ways.
Yeah.
I obviously met Derek from the gym. I just kind of saw him, wanted to meet him because knew him from social media. But then I kind of had that mindset of there was just more to it. And like, I felt it in my gut, because at the time I am a very religious person, and I prayed that day, and I go like, I need a sign that what I'm doing is actually what I'm meant to be doing. I had just started doing social media. I had just been working on, like, I was building the background of this podcast basically.
Yeah.
I had just launched my personal brand.
Yeah.
And like 2 weeks in, I'm seeing no numbers.
Yeah.
And I'm like beating myself up because my content's horrible.
Yeah.
And like, I'm obviously going to get no traction that way. And I'm like, look, I need a sign that the path that I'm on is the right path. That day, I'm supposed to leave to Jersey. I'm supposed to be on the plane at 12 o'clock. My mom calls me, goes, our flight was canceled. So I go, all right, I'm going to go to the gym. So I go to the gym. Sure enough, he's there. I meet Derek. And then the weeks after, I kind of saw him sporadically. And every time I saw him, I was so scared to like see him. But I knew that I had to go build a relationship with him. The second time I talked to him, I'd asked him, look, I have a car detailing business. How can I go up to somebody and approach them who has a nice car and, you know, basically do whatever? He gives me his advice, and I'm like, okay, thank you so much, Mr. Fay, which is where the Mr. Fay starts from. And I come back the next time I see him. I go to him, and I give him the exact line he gave me. And he starts laughing because he realized, like, right at the end that I just threw his line back at his face.
Yeah.
And I think that's when I kind of got his respect a little bit more. And then he gave me advice on how to, like, fix it up a little bit. And then I learned everything I could about Derek.
Yeah.
I watched, I kid you not, I may have watched 15 to 20 hours of Derek content. I learned everything that I could that was possibly out there on Derek. And then I went to him after hearing that he wants to help build younger entrepreneurs. And I went, okay, that's my in.
Yeah.
So I go to him and I go, hey, look, I really need your advice. You have something that I need. And we both go to the gym at the same time. It wouldn't be an inconvenience as far as like scheduling. Could we just do a workout together? It doesn't have to be today, but can I just pick your brain for an hour, basically? Yeah. And he goes, you know what? That might be a really good video. Let me talk to my team about it. That was in October of 2023.
Yeah.
From there, I just kept bugging him about detailing his car and doing a video session with him, basically. Eventually, maybe like February to like March-ish, I came into here, and I really liked yours and Ryan's energy. Like, you had, like, we were talking, the whole setup was way different. But
yeah.
We had been talking, and we like kind of got into like fighting and like just everything else. And I really liked the way that you were talking, your energy, just like, to me, I follow the side of TikTok and Instagram, the influencers that are like the younger 20s, right out of college, but are like super go get it, have businesses, the Lucas Pactors with Squid Hoss, you know, those kind of people. I met you and Ryan, I'm like, those are the guys I follow. I need to try to get into here. And then we kind of just like, I guess we kind of just hit it off, and whatever happened. But
you had the energy for us. Like I've said this, like, I've hired horribly for so many years. Luckily I've made the right hires at the right time, like Ryan. But I'd made wrong hires for so long. And when I met you, I was like, man, so young, but has that it, like, has that thing that, like, me and Jace, we were those kids. Like, we were the guys that were doing what you were doing. Like, we wanted it all and more. And like, being around somebody like yourself who has that energy is so intoxicating for us. Like, cause again, like, we're Me and Ryan talked about this yesterday. It's like we work like dogs. And when you put in that work day after day, you lose complete perspective of what you're doing. So having somebody like you come in and inject that like perspective of like, holy shit, you guys work with this person and you get to do that and you get to whatever. It just gave us the perspective of like, not only, wow, we're doing something really cool, but like, what I always say when you're building a company is if you build something that people really give a shit about, not just the clients, but like the people, really companies are built through people. So if we can build a vision big enough to where your story fits into our vision, that's really what building a successful company is. Mm-hmm. It's getting talented people who have all the ambition in the world and they just so happen to want to drive alongside you. Like that's a awesome thing. And that, you know, Derek talks about that a lot. Like there's no ego to our company, because at the end of the day, we want to build an environment where it doesn't matter if you're 16 or 14 and you come in and you know content and you know social media. Listen, your ideas are going to win. You'll end up coming up with a content idea that'll end up on a Gronkowski page or something like that. Like it's that simple, but getting in the door here is a difficult thing. It's like, listen, I don't like being around anything that I don't like being around. People tell me all the time, I keep my circle tight, like tight, because guess what? I don't really trust many people. And it's not like, I don't want to get into a spew of like, oh, don't trust people, but it's like, protect your energy. When I bring people into our ecosystem, I want them to fucking win. Mm-hmm. And I put a lot of time behind these people to make sure that they win. Not only just in our business, but like in their life, like going forward. There's people that have worked for us that literally built a career, and now we're making tons of money because of the exposure of what we were able to provide for them. Mm-hmm. So that's sick. And being able to do that on repeat is really all I care to do.
I've been like the same way. I have the hyper specific mindset of if I don't like it, I'm not going to do it. Mm-hmm. And that is a big thing in my life. I'm a very like control freak kind of person, mm-hmm. where I have that OCD. Like if it's not my way, then I kind of get pissed off. Yeah. So in my life, it's like my friends will get really annoyed because like we'll be out and then like randomly I'll want to be home and I'm like, all right, I'm going home. That's it. Like that's it. Like it's not a discussion. Like I do what I want to do when I want to do it because that's what I want to do. Yeah. But obviously there's discipline with that. But I'm very protective of who I'm around. Like if it could literally be 5 of my friends and then one person who I'm like, I won't go. I will not go. I'd rather just protect like my space. I'd rather go do something on my own, because for me, I'm a very big energy person. Although I guess I don't know if that contradicts with my faith, technically speaking. I do believe in energies of the world. Everybody scientifically produces an energy from their heart. Yep. And so I'm a very big believer that if your energies don't match with mine, I'm not disrupting mine because I know where I'm going. Yeah. I know where I am and I know what I'm building. And if somebody has the chance to disrupt it, get out of here. Like that's not worth my time. Did you ever find a struggle in college? Yeah. With like finding people who actually met your vibe and met that energy of like, go, like I'm after it?
I was lucky freshman year meeting Jace. The second me and Jace met each other, we were like, that energy. Okay. All right. That energy. So yes and no. I found people that I knew fit my bill of like, they're this person, they're that person, but also I still wanted to be the college. Like I had a goal going into college that I wanted to be the most popular man on campus. For what reason? Ego. But I still wanted to do it because I thought that would be cool. Like, you know what I mean? Like be the man of the arena in a lot of cases. But what happened was when you start playing when you start playing to be like the most well-known or have these people that like have all these people in your circle, you reduce the amount of energy that you can give to the relationships that matter most. Like we all have a select amount of energy that we can produce in a day, in a week, in a month, in a year. For me now, and it took me going through college, the more I got to the end, the closer I got to the end, the more I was like, I like this person, but I know where they're going. and they don't have any desire to go anywhere else. So am I going to attach myself to them even though I know they're going in a different direction than me just to have companionship? Not really interested in that. Like I don't like the mindset of like the lone wolf and all that bullshit. Like but I do think there is something to be said for a small subset of people that you hang around and they help you drive forward. It's not that you're using them, it's that you're using each other. You're Napoleon Hill talks about the mastermind, and we all have like at our cellular level, what you're talking about, the energy that we produce. If you get one person that has that energy and you stack that with another person that is driving towards the same goal, that's why setting a goal is so goddamn important in business, because when you have multiple energy sources that are all pushing towards the same thing, you multiply the energy that you spend on the thing itself. That's why it's so important to have people around you when you're building a company. That's why having partners is important. That's why having partners that are better than you are important in a lot of ways. But I think in college specifically, it's about opening up to as many people as possible and then identifying what you want in your life that surrounds your energy, and then being very disciplined with, like, although there's pain associated with, oh, this person doesn't like me as much because I don't bring to the table that this guy does because they go out every Saturday night together and I don't have that relationship. Well, I mean, yeah, that sucks. But like at the end of the day, you're not going to see it now. But later on down the road, those are going to be the guys that are like, dude, how did you do it? How did you do it? Well, I was focused.
How is it looking back at college now that you're a year or two removed from college?
Yeah.
You're about 4 or 5 years removed from high school.
6, which is crazy.
That's insane. Wow, so that's 6 years between us. So 6 years removed from high school. What is it like looking back on people from your high school and from your college, where they're sitting at now, and compared to where they were in high school? Are there people who were like us that fell off, or people who weren't driven that became driven, or just kind of like what that is?
What happens from high school to college is, it's very scary to see, but people that have like that sports energy or have that like growth mindset mentality, you know, they're snatched up in college a lot of times because the grips of alcohol, the grips of drugs, the grips of partying get a hold of a lot of people, and then they use all that energy that they used to put towards their athletics, or if they had a lawn business in high school, they put that towards partying, going out. And then when you couple that with, okay, you party, let's say you're partying 12 hours a week, which is like not even crazy to say. And then you couple that with the 20-hour-a-week job that is low leverage. I have nothing against it. I worked at a restaurant. I did that. I have no shame for that. But like, when you turn yourself into a human doer who's just doing work, party, school, repeat, that 4 years goes by in a blink. And I promise you, a blink. And then you get to the end of it and you realize, what have I done to set myself up for future success? Most likely nothing. So what then happens is people, instead of altering, you've just built 4 years of habits. 4 years of habits. And that's what people don't understand. You're 18 years old or 17 years old or whatever you end up being.
Huge developmental phase.
And you go from 18 to 22 and you build habits around partying, drinking, working, whatever it ends up being. Like, there's bad working habits too. And then you expect yourself to like get out of college and then just be this fucking killer. It's not, it doesn't really work out like that. I tell all my buddies who I talk to that are still in college, once you get to that junior year, start thinking, start opening your mind, start being okay with the idea of, is this $2,000 or whatever I'm making from my restaurant job, is this really the money that would I rather go make 500 doing something that gives me experience or that does this? It's like, in a lot of cases, that's the trap.
And I think that's kind of why I'm a little bit lucky. I've had the opportunity to kind of get a perspective at a really young age what college is going to be like. My brother is 3 years older than me, so I was more than lucky to have the experience of my brother really messing up his first year, partying and getting trapped in that, and not doing good in school, and hearing that from my parents. And I also think me failing that year too. My sophomore year, I didn't do good in school the first year first semester because I didn't care.
Yeah.
I realized that I was setting myself up for summer school, and I went, "Oh, I can't do that."
Yeah.
And that's when I put the fire under my and just started grinding. I was at school an hour early, so I was there at 5 a.m. every morning, and I wouldn't leave school till 5 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
I was there for math in the morning, chemistry at night, and I was just grinding.
Yep.
I got lucky enough to realize a lot of things in that time that I didn't want to have to ever play catch up again in my life. So I got ahead in doing dual enrollment. So I'm 2 years ahead in college now. So I have my associate's degree. I'm not even 18 years old. So I'm now in my junior year of college, technically speaking, and I understand I'm in the point in my life where if I don't set myself up, I felt it when I was working as a food runner. I was a food runner, also worked in restaurants.
Yep.
I realized working there, I'm doing nothing. The people around me, the people who are working there as servers and whatever else, they're not doing what I want to do in life. I can't keep putting my energy here because if I stay here, how do I expect to be here? Because that's where I know my mind is. But if my body, my energy is here, I can't get to here.
And you don't have the context at that other level because you're working with people, and nothing wrong with that. But like you're working with people that are lifelong servers or journeymen in terms of their career, and they picked up serving or whatever it ends up being. And I have no shame for that. Like if that's the way that you want to make money, go make your money. My girlfriend my fiance still to this day is a bartender. Like she loves it. She loves the energy that she gets from it, but she also has a fiance who's building an asset. You know what I mean? Like she doesn't necessarily have to worry about doing that. But for us being where we're at, it's a trap, man, because that server money is nice. You know what I mean? The validation that you get from being the hot shit on campus is nice. Like these things are nice, man. They're really cool in the moment, and then you realize that nobody gives a and that's when most people don't recognize that until they're out of college, because they'll go and now all of a sudden when they're let's take Miami for an example. When you're at a college bar, if you got $250 in cash and you're the richest man on campus, like you're the fucking guy when you walk into that bar. Then you walk into a Miami nightclub and you got guys that have hundreds of millions of dollars in their bank account.
$5K for a table. No, that's the low end. It's $5K to walk in the door.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, so that's a different level. And whether people want to spend their money how they want to spend their money, not my thing. But my point is, the other thing I'll say for anybody that actually gives a shit, your pool of finding your woman in college, it's the best it's ever going to be for the rest of your life. So you better get moving.
Let's actually kind of like get into that a little bit more. Mm-hmm. You were sophomore year, you told me, right?
Yeah.
And you met your now fiance. Congratulations, by the way.
Appreciate it.
What was that like from going from high school? Did you have any relationships in high school? What was your experience before Jordan?
Yeah.
And like what kind of like led up to that, dude?
Dude, I had no experience. I didn't have a long-term relationship. The longest relationship I had been in when I met Jordan was like maybe a month. Maybe. But I always, because of my religion, I'm born and raised Christian. I didn't realize then, but I had this inkling of like, I know what a relationship with a woman is supposed to be. It's not supposed to be what we're kind of shown. Like people make it out to be like, it's a game. Like a lot of people spend a lot of their energy in the game of getting women. Like it is a full thing. Like the dates, the nights out at the bar, that first kiss, it's all a game for a lot of people. And I, even in freshman year of college, I was already worn out by it. Like I was already just like, the value of getting that new dopamine from like new women and new things didn't produce the same level of satisfaction as did me getting to hang out with the guys or get to invest into other people or other things. It just, never got that like, oh, like, yes, thank God I finally scored that chick. It's like, I never felt that way. And for a lot of reasons, I felt like an outsider because of it. But luckily I found Jordan, and, you know, we broke up 2 times through college. Like, it was rocky because I was a young kid. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't figure out myself. She didn't know herself. But we got comfortable with the idea of growing up with each other and understanding that we were imperfect at that moment and we were going to continue to be imperfect for the rest of our lives, so long as we're comfortable with riding this out together. What I'd say is we got very clear early on our foundation, our values, what we believed in, why we believed in it. She knew I was a hard worker, and I told her, like, don't expect me not to work hard. So long as I'm working hard, I'm going to show up better in our relationship. So we had built very specific values around this is what is important to us, and we just made sure that as long as we had those commonalities, whatever the bullshit was, whatever the fight was, whatever the immaturity was, we believed that it was worth it to withstand it. And that's what a lot of people, for no other reason of just like the options that we have now, like, people just don't sit through that.
From my perspective, I think that it's really cool because I've always had the perspective of I've always been more of a relationship person. I never really, like, my grandpa will make like jokes about it because that's how he was as a kid. You know, you love the woman, you want to get as many as you can, this and that. And for me, I was always just, I saw more value in a relationship than I saw in just getting with a girl, basically.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just because I'm always constantly trying to grow and improve myself and just learn as much about myself. Because I feel like when you're in a proper relationship, you do learn a lot about yourself.
Consistently.
In good ways and in bad ways. I think that kind of goes around to an addiction. So, in my opinion, there's people who are addicted to trying to get those first dates. They hook you up with different women, this and that. People are addicted to sports, which kind of brings us back to high school to college transition.
Yeah.
Those high school athletes who were addicted to playing sports and they were addicted to something that was good for them ended up changing into an addiction that was bad for them. And they didn't realize that those habits were building and that's what their addiction became. For me, I always found a good way of managing my addictions. I'm very self-aware. So for me, managing my addictions were always good. I'm addicted to the feeling of love and relationship. Like that's an addiction.
Yeah,
100%.
Absolutely.
And so I got so addicted to like love and relationship. I'd put all my energy in. And then when I realized that that's not sustainable, pulled back. And like, that's not healthy in a relationship. I get really addicted to things and then I have to pull away because I do too much in too little time. And that's something that I've been working on like the last year. And I found a huge balance and improvement in. This podcast, for example, the first time I started, I was like, all right, I'm going to put this many hours, that whatever's required to edit, upload, do whatever's necessary for the podcast, then just stay away. Don't get involved in the numbers. Don't get involved in the analytics.
Yeah.
Don't waste your mental energy on that because it's, first off, something you can't control.
Yep.
You're putting the variables away. As many variables that you could put away, you're doing it. And that's what matters for me.
Yep, absolutely.
When I started, that's what I cared about. So then moving forward, I'm like, all right, I'm looking at engagement. What can I improve? That's always part of the game. It's not just like I'm editing, whatever else. So I figure out what I can improve, but not stay too addicted to it to the point where like it's my life.
Yep.
So what I found here is I know there's serious value. I plan to be here long term.
Yep.
So how do I balance my work to life to whatever relationship? For me, that's coming to the office, getting my work done, hanging out with you guys, and honestly, being here doesn't feel like work to me.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, how does it work when I sit here, I take notes on a podcast, and then I post content, basically.
Yeah.
And I work with, like, the coolest people you can, like, you guys plus the clients we work with.
Yeah, it's sick.
And then we take mental breaks. We go down. We throw the football. Like,
Yeah.
It's just super chill, and it feels like a good environment, and you don't feel worn out by it. I go home. I have that feeling of, like,
Yeah,
My brain's done for the day, but let me just focus on myself. And focusing on myself has helped me find that balance of not over obsessing with something. When I was able to start, you inspired me to start running.
Yeah.
I started running, and I found more balance in my life. I used to hyperfixate on what I was going through at the time mentally, right?
Yep.
So I'd hyperfixate on that, literally from the moment I woke up to the moment I'd sleep. And although I'd get my work done in between, I'd still be focused on that. And I started running, and it allowed me to think about that for 10, 15 minutes, just that. No phone, no music, nothing. And I could just hyperfixate then. And then the rest of my day, I had that clarity and energy and good feeling in my body that I didn't have to focus on that.
Yeah.
So for you, because you're like me, did you have an addiction to anything? I mean, you did sports, so you obviously had some sort of addiction there.
Yeah.
But how did you find a good way of transferring that, balancing your addiction to working and whatever else?
I had a ton of different addictions. I had the addiction to partying. I had the addiction to the chase for women. I had after football, I had a short stint doing powerlifting, and then after powerlifting was kind of done, right when I kicked off my freshman year fall semester, I put all my energy into climbing the social ranks in college. That was my obsession. That was my focus. Building building my leadership positions within my fraternity, within student government, and all these different things. I had a lot of things that I fixated on, but when it came to the partying aspect of it, what I recognized was it was just a time thing. It's like your addictions are where's your time sucked. Like if you look at your calendar, you can find the addictions of the things that don't push you forward, yet you're still spending a lot of time doing it because it gives you immediate relief. For instance, like you could look at smoking. I have nothing against smoking, but what is it really? It's meditation just quicker. Mm-hmm. That's what people don't even realize. It's like, and as somebody that does smoke, like I will smoke, like I get it. Mm-hmm. I completely understand the idea around, guess what? It's way more efficient to get in a better state of mind with just sparking up some little Jimmy versus sitting there for 20 minutes and meditating and having to sit there and be bored and whatever. So it's all about where is your time going? Look at your calendar. And if you don't have a calendar, like create a semblance of like where's most of your time spent, and the things that aren't pushing you forward, yet you're still showing up every day doing it. That's chances are it's probably an addiction. You
said like writing a calendar down, finding that part of it. Mm-hmm. I found, first off, calendaring your day out is really, really good. So that way you get an idea of what's going on in your life, where you can kind of relieve some of your stress, where you can add some. Yeah. Things like that I found really important for me. Another thing was writing down my thoughts and my ideas.
Yeah, absolutely.
For me, if I can't put together the thoughts in my head, I can write it down and visualize it. Mm-hmm. Because for me, sometimes it gets really hard because my brain, I like to say I have like a million TVs going on in my brain. Like if the whole perception here was a bunch of screens, they're all playing different things and I'm just tuning into one at a time, but they're all still going on and I'm still all thinking about them at once. So for me, I have to write my ideas down. I'd like to, especially at nighttime when I'm in that deep meditative state, I take 20, 30 minutes, be by myself, no music, because like I said, I'm a big believer in energy and vibrations. And what is music? It's a vibration. If you put it into your body, whatever it is, good or bad, it's being put into your body. So I like to keep my meditations in my aura, in my room, because my room's going to have the most energy of me. And I just sit there with a pen and a book, and I just write whatever I feel like writing. And in specifically really tough moments in life, I like to write down my ideas and what I'm going through and how to process them. Mm-hmm. Do you ever do meditation like that when it comes to like journaling?
Yeah, dude, I started journaling back in 2021. I have like 4 books or five books of journals that I journaled every day for like every day. Probably if there's 300 days in a year or 365 days in a year, I've journaled 300 of them pretty much for the last 4 years.
Oh, wow.
That was when I started getting a handle on my mental health. And not even just mental health, but like all areas of my life. Because when you start looking at your journal as like a barometer for where you are in that moment, you start to be able to go back, read it, and be like, oh, if I want to avoid feeling like that, all I got to do is just this. And like, that's the value of a journal. And I try to get everybody I can into journaling because it's like the best form of self-reflection. It's the best form of like actually knowing what's going on. Like, we're not that variable beings. Like we have certain habits that we always go back to, and being able to look at like what habits are serving you, what people are serving you, what mindsets are serving you. Like, there was a moment a few years ago where I was like reading my journal. I was like, man, I'm mean as to myself. Like, Jesus, like I'm ripping myself to shred in here. And I was like, is that helpful, or is that just me being like kind of to just be an ass, because that's all I have is I just have my pen and I can just spew all the negativity that I feel towards myself on this piece of paper. And then I was like, what if I change the language in this? What if I'm more forgiving of myself? What if I'm more understanding of the ebbs and flows of discipline? What if I just give myself a little bit of a reprieve? Well, hence all of a sudden that discipline becomes easier. Now all of a sudden I believe in myself more. But the journaling thing, most people that have those ruminating thoughts that they can't necessarily pinpoint why they feel the way that they feel, you just start sketching it out, man. Like, you'll find out eventually. It takes a long time though. Like, I didn't start figuring it out probably like a year into journaling.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So my personal journey with journaling is kind of started quarantine-ish time. I'm a big Bradley Martin fan, as I expressed to you, and he talks a lot about mental health. He said journaling really helped him. I said, screw it. I'm gonna do it. So I kind of got into it, and right away it helped me because I was able to talk about the ideas that I couldn't think about. We're taught, at least I was taught, very much so in my life, to always think twice before you speak. And if I'm just speaking what my thoughts are, I'm going to think twice about it, and I'm going to subconsciously double check my thought before I produce it. But if I literally just let my subconscious speak on a piece of paper, and I literally, like, people don't understand when I say this, is I literally turn my front lobe off. Like, I can
turn
feel
the filter off.
I can literally feel my brain turn off, and just like everything that I want to speak out is just like, I'm in a flow state. But it takes that meditation before I start writing to produce the flow result. Is there anything that you'd like to say? Anything you'd like to promote? Anything?
I think we're going to look back on this podcast. I believe in you. I believe in what you're going to do. It's my job over the next however long you work here is to prove that this is an experience for you that is going to help benefit you. I know you're going to be successful. And the people that are around you know that you're going to be successful. Be okay with where you're at. Be okay with exactly where you're at. Be aware of where you can get better and where you need to maybe not invest so much time in because you're already worlds ahead on. And just specifically just take the time to just invest into yourself, invest into what you do and what you care to do. And I mean, dude, you got it all figured out. You just got to keep doing it. You know what I mean?
Thank you, dude. I appreciate that a lot. I obviously see a very far and high trajectory for Grit Media.
Yeah, man.
For you, yourself, for your triathlon, I think you're prepping for.
Getting there.
That's going to be one hell of a journey. Where can people find you, Jamie?
Check me out on Instagram, Jamie Venz, JAIMEVENZ. Piece of Grit podcast. We put one up once a week. You got a cameo last week. And then if you want to obviously check out the business, check out Grit Media Group on Instagram. And yeah, man, obviously I love investing into people, so shoot me a DM if you have any questions.
I want to thank you for coming on the podcast. All of his links, Instagram, POG, which is Piece of Grit Podcast, that will be down below. At the end of this video, there should be their little pop-up for the video that I'm on with Ben, the founder of Pure. with that being said, I thank you guys for watching it. Have a great day, week, month, and year, and we'll see you guys next time.